Media and violence in India. If one were to watch prime-time television debates on important national issues in some of the electronic media channels, from abusive language usage to unrestricted public show of tempers, what would the message viewers get? Especially the children and the young population of this country are expected to experience the benefits from demographic dividend. It's not mere assertiveness but an aggressive posture, which is crucial for succeeding in this highly competitive world. This could be the message that gets reinforced and that goes a long way in contributing to changing value system of the society from cooperation and harmony to aggressiveness and violence. Contrasting to this subtle form of violence, findings from the recent sexual assault cases, which shook the entire country's conscience, indicate more direct forms of violence, reinforced directly or indirectly in whatever meager forms by media, in particularly social media. Some of the accused in these cases indulged themselves in watching pornography before committing such ghostly violent activities. Similar is the case with recent sexual assaults on children of 3 to 4 years age in Bangalore schools. However, it's no less a phenomenal achievement that the significant and dominant role played by media in arising the national consciousness in contributing to India's national movement, in strengthening and consolidating independent India and in upholding social justice. But with the advent of globalization, liberalization and technological revolutions, media also undergone unprecedented changes in its reach, impact, value system, with some of its intended or unintended consequences of promoting violence or other antisocial behaviors either directly or indirectly. Both media and violence has myriad manifestations encompassing social, political, cultural, economic and environmental aspects, which would need to be illustrated in understanding not only about how media influences aggressive behaviors but also to recognize how a collective effort of media and citizens can turn the wheel around to promote pro-social behavior, contributing to national building. Varied forms of violence and media. Intolerance itself is a form of violence and it undermines democratic principles. Gandhiji. The above-mentioned TV debates do foster intolerance to dissent views, undermining the very democratic principles that the media has to champion. Similarly, conspicuous mass consumption, of which media becomes one of the male agents in promoting this behavior, is again the one more form of subtle violence, in its broader terms. Excessive consumerism is leading us to environmental degradation, imbalanced consumption of already scarce natural resource, resulting in wide inequalities and social unrest, by segregating people to haves and have-nots. It's an act of violence against the nature, especially wildlife. Apart from this, corruption, black money and other economic terrorism acts also get influenced by media, though in very subtle and in often unrecognizable ways. For example, if the media itself engages in corrupt practices such as fake news, what message it propagates? It might reinforce that it's okay to be corrupt and corruption becomes a way of life, making the people indifferent to corruption. These are all subtle forms of violence distinct from more direct and dangerous forms of violence influenced by media, such as violence against women, children, weaker sections of society like Dalits, communal, linguistic and regional violent clashes, terrorism, insurgency, etc. On a similar note, the recent communication technology revolution has snagged the media from its traditional form of print media and films, in its simplest forms, to more nuanced forms of media such as innumerable of electronic television channels, social media like Twitter, Facebook, citizen journalism, video games, mobile advertising, etc. Each of these forms has increased many folds of the media influence, reach and impact on its target people. Media influence on aggressive behavior. Does aggressive person watch violent programs on media? Or does violent program on media make the person aggressive? This is a classical research question in social psychology, and what comes out very clear is that media has a firm and definitive role to play in promoting aggressive behavior in children. Though there are varied of other factors which determine the real-time behavior, this has a much more bearing for India, where universal education is still far from reality. The recent Supreme Court guidelines of how media should report court proceedings, respecting the rights of the victims and how not to glamorize, glorify and sensationalize crime, illustrate a role media has been playing in promoting violent behavior. Indecent representation of the women in media and films has contributed to objectification of women and further reinforced the patriarchal mindset of the Indian men. This has been resulting in more crimes against women. Fueling communal, linguistic and regional clashes and guiding values of media. India is a pluralistic country and has witnessed many riots and clashes based on religion, language, region. Etc. Whether it is 1990s Mumbai riots or 1960s Hindi official language issue or more recent origin of increasing interstate and interstate water disputes, in each of these issues, media has to conduct its affairs in objective and impartial ways. Media's role has been questioned a number of times in sensationalizing the ordinary issues beyond their due importance and fueling further social tensions and mistrust. Rather than bridging the social harmony and trust, it's acting as a catalyst to fuel those tensions. Terrorism, economic terrorism, hate propaganda and cyber terrorism. These days, social media has become safe havens for terror recruits, planning and executing major terrorist attacks and cyber attacks. Money laundering and other forms of economic terrorism are also making active use of social media, which is largely unregulated. These activities are later channeled for illegal activities such as drug trafficking, human trafficking and varied other forms of violent acts. Even the latest incidents of communal riots in different parts of the country illustrate how some sections of the society used morphed images, flash videos on social media to propagate hatred against other sections of the society. There are numerous other categories of violence influenced by media, such as promoting violence against weaker sections like attacks on Dalits and tribals, eroding the culture and heritage values of the country, and in creating and sustaining the civil society-based agitations against various national issues. However, media has a tremendous and immense capacity to promote pro-social behavior, reducing the outmoded patriarchal and other anti-social attitudes. It's not just the mere change agent, but a change leader which can initiate and create a social transformation by self-regulating with the recognition of the rights of the people to demand transparency and accountability from the media, by anchoring as a true fourth pillar of democracy to promote social harmony and peace, the eternal values of human existence.